Subtotaling is a really useful feature when you have a lot of data, as we've got in this worksheet. A lot of data about different types of products available to different restaurants. Most important thing to bear in mind when you are using subtotaling is that your first column is the basis of what you are subtotaling with, and you have to make sure it's sorted so that all of the like items are together. So I've sorted this to bring all my crab meat together and then all the tolino together. So as long as you've got a situation where you've got a lot of data and it's sorted on that first column, you should be able to use subtotaling. It's a fairly simple and straightforward system. Just make sure your selected cell is somewhere in the data list. Select data, drop down to subtotals, and we get the subtotal dialog box. And what this is saying is, at each change in product name, now I said we use the first column there. You don't actually have to. You can use other ones. It's just a lot more straightforward, especially while you are still practicing, is to use that first column. Once you get competent with that, then try using the other columns. So at each change in product name, we're going to do something. Now these two boxes are used in conjunction. We've got to choose what kind of calculation we want to perform and on what field we're going to perform it. So I want to add up the total number of sales, the quantity of sales. So I'm choosing sum in the function box, and then this has a list of all the available fields we want to use. And we just make sure we've got the correct box selected. So I'm adding up the quantity of sales. Just move that to one side. It's this quantity here. And then we click OK. Now before I do that, just notice I've got a tick box here for summary below data. I'll explain what that means in a second, but make sure that's ticked and then OK. So what this has done, it's actually created an outline for us. And if I scroll down the list of crab meat, you'll notice when we get to the end of that category, crab meat, we have now a total of crab meat. And that is adding up, that total there has added up all these quantities. Have a look at the function. It's actually worth going into the help and looking up the subtotal function to see what all that means. But basically, we are subtotaling. That number 9 means add, means sum. And then it's given the cell range to sum. I keep scrolling down, Tolinos. At the end of Tolinos, we've got a total for Tolino, and there's that figure there. And that is just adding up the quantity sold for Tolino. And again, it's equals subtotal. 9 means add up. Now, at the left-hand side, you'll have probably noticed that we've got this extra pane now. This is an outlining pane and allows us to expand and contract the various areas. If I click on the number 1 there at the top left-hand side, it shrinks everything down to just show us the grand total of all the sales of products. Remember in that dialog box when I said, remember this tick? That's what this is giving you. It's giving you that grand total. If we hadn't ticked that box, we wouldn't have the grand total. Let's select level 2. Level 2 shows you the grand total and all the subtotals. So you can see we've this chinois pate we've sold for 1,676. Level 3 shows all the detail for each category. Level 1, just the total. Level 2, the subtotals. Level 3, everything. Now on level 2, what we can actually do is find some detail. So if we're interested in the pâté chinois, for example, we can click on the plus sign next to that and it expands just that category. So you can look at the detail of the sales. Once we've expanded that, the plus sign changes to a minus sign. We click the minus sign and it shrinks it back down. If we want to have a look at this category, Click the plus sign next to it, shows you the detail with the totals, and then we can shrink it back down. Let's go back into that menu and do data, subtotals, because you can add more than one subtotal. I'm going to keep it at each change in product name. This time I want to count the number of times we've made a sale. So I'm still going to count on quantity, but I'm counting it now rather than adding it up. Really important, because we want 2 here, we've got to make sure this tick box here is not selected. Replace current subtotals. If that is ticked, then what will happen is our sum totals will disappear and be replaced with count totals. That's if we replace it. I don't want to replace it. I want to add it in as an extra, so I remove the tick and then click on OK. You can see what's on there. We're on level 2. So it's showing us all the subtotals, but now for each category, Boston crab meat, we've now got the sum total of everything sold and the number of times it was sold, the count. Let's have a look at these dried apples, for example. We can expand that up and see that we have the total number sold is 427. That's adding up those numbers. And we have made 9 sales. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we can contract that back down. So what we did there was data, subtotals. We added in another calculation, and we made sure that it wasn't going to replace. Let's count how many customers buy each product. So we can do that. First of all, if we remove all, it removes all the subtotaling. Back to normal. Click on your data, data, subtotals. At each change in product name, count the number of customers. Make sure there's no other ticks in there, just the ones that you want to use. I want a summary below the data. Click on OK. And there's our calculations. I'm just going to select outline level 2. And you can see there 99 customers bought crab meat. 9 customers bought dried apples. So that's subtotaling. And what that is doing is actually automating something that you can do manually. If I just show you this briefly, I don't want to show you how to do this in detail, but just to show you where it's at. If I select data, grouping and outline, that's what we can do all these things manually here. We can add groups, ungroup things. These are the groups. And we can hide and show detail. If I show detail, for example, it expands up that category. So have a play around with subtotals. You can do grouping and outline by yourself if you want, but really for this particular element of the syllabus, you only need to know the subtotals method. That's selecting subtotals and then just dialing up what you want to calculate. And remember, remove all resets things back to normal. Subtotaling.